Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Legacy. My name's Noah Mitchell and I'm the Senior Learning Experience Designer here at Legacy FM. And today, I want to briefly talk about writing well. And in fact, I want to talk about writing more concisely. So, as is the nature of most of my videos, I tend to base them on things that I have personally struggled with in my own professional and personal life. So when it comes to writing concisely, I find it extremely difficult because I am the type of person that is interested in everything, and for whatever reason, when I look at a subject, especially when I'm trying to write about it, every single detail seems like it is the most pertinent detail. Like I can't cut anything out. This definitely used to be the case, and especially in graduate school, that gets really challenging because on the one hand, you are writing 20, 30-page papers, and on the other hand, you're being told, yes, but that needs to be concise information. So it was always this battle of trying to whittle things down and really just grind my way through that process. And now that I have a career as an instructional designer, it's just as important, of course, in a different way, to be concise when I'm writing, because when you're developing learning for people, the more stuff that you put on the slide or the more stuff and information that you give them, the less they're likely to learn. So that's why writing and being concise is so important. Now in the professional domain, of course, let's take writing emails, for example. Concision can be extremely important. And in fact, whenever I started my career, when I was looking for a job, I applied to a local software company to be a customer success manager. And I made it to the final stages, and ultimately I was not selected. But thankfully, because I ended up at Legacy FM and I love it. But I reached out for feedback and they were very gracious to have someone contact me to go over my interview process to talk about some of the ways I went wrong. And one of the biggest things was not being concise enough. They said you're going to be communicating with people who are extremely busy, and so the longer your emails are, even though you're trying to be really nice and you're personable, it just might not bode well with them. They might not want to read it. And that was really the first time I think that really clicked of like, oh wow, I'm not being concise enough. So what can I do? Well, I'm going to walk you through 3 quick steps, and then I promise I'll let you go. So the first thing I would say when it comes to being concise is to just take it slow. And that sounds counterintuitive, I know, because you're thinking, I've got tight deadlines, Noah. I can't take it any slower than when I'm taking it. However, if you really kind of like step back as you're writing, take it a little bit slower and think about the things that you're writing. What I've found is that along the way, I will, in the process of writing even a sentence, I will identify words. I'm like, no, well, it needs to be that. And oh, I cut this phrase out and use this word instead. And so as I, continue in my case, writing several slides out for e-learning, it just ends up being a lot more concise. Of course, it doesn't stop there for me though. My inconciseness, if you will, always seems to come out in different ways, but definitely taking it slow helps me sort of see things from a bird's eye view and just say, okay, as I'm going along, I can cut things out. Now, that being said, the next thing that I would suggest is using a tool like Grammarly. And I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about Grammarly. They have a free version as well as a paid pro version. I have not used the pro version yet, but I hear that it has a lot of great features too. But for what I need to do, the free version has really gone above and beyond for me. And so you can even download this as an extension in your web browser. I use Google Chrome. And so what Grammarly does is it's really, I think a lot of people would mistakenly say it's just a word checker, a spell checker, but it's really more than that. They've been developing this software over several years. And so what Grammarly will do allows you to set some parameters for what kind of tone you're going for, what kind of readability level you're going for, stuff like that. And it will give you suggestions in real time as you're typing. Now, sometimes if you're not working in a web browser, for example, I work in Storyline 360, where I'm typing onto a slide and Grammarly is not integrated with my software. So what you have to do is copy that and paste it into the Grammarly app itself. Simple step though, it doesn't take a lot of time to do that. And Grammarly is going to not only tell you what you spelled wrong, it will also tell you if you used a word incorrectly. It will give you suggestions for more concise word choices. It will let you know when a sentence doesn't make sense or when a sentence gets too long and it may be unclear. It will also usually offer suggestions for how to make that more clear. Although I think that once you get into that domain, it's definitely more of a paid pro version ordeal. But the great thing is that it still points it out to you and lets you know that, hey, there's something in this phrase that you could do to make it more clear, and then you can work on that yourself. Now, I'm talking about Grammarly a lot. There are other tools out there. I don't actually know what they are at the moment. I'm sorry, because Grammarly really is at the forefront and I love it. But I know that the spell checker in Microsoft Word and PowerPoint have also been undergoing a lot of updates. And so those are starting to, I think, try and challenge Grammarly in that way and do the same sorts of things that Grammarly is doing. So definitely use the tools at your disposal there. And then my third suggestion, big original suggestion, I know it's not really, is just a proofread. Again, I know time is tight. We have these tight deadlines. It gets hard. However, if you just take the time at the end of the process to review your work, which I assume you're already going to be reviewing it, whether it be a Storyline 360 course or Articulate Rise course or an email. Let's say you don't work in instructional design and you're just writing an email. You're probably going to review that email to make sure you got everything right, make sure you got everything in that you wanted to put in. So why not also take that time to proofread the concision of your email, of your work? And what I've found is I tend to be a lot better at proofreading. So my method tends to be that I will just write for the sake of writing. I will just write no matter how it seems, no matter how fluffy the language seems, all of that. As I'm going along, I try to slow down, of course, and find opportunities, but still there are a lot of missed opportunities. Grammarly doesn't always catch everything, and I've learned that over the time of using it. It does a wonderful job with what it does. However, there are still cases where I think it's wrong or it suggests something and I change it and I go back and I say, well, no, that's not really what I wanted to say. I wanted to say this. So definitely go back and proofread. Make sure that you're getting to say what you need to say. You're getting to evoke what you want to evoke, and maybe catch those missed opportunities that your own slowing down and Grammarly didn't catch. So those are my 3 tips for how to be more concise with writing. I'm sure there are tons of other resources out there about how to do this, but that's all I've got for you today. So anyway, you all have an awesome day. We'll see you next time.